So, you probably think you're a rational person, right? Confident in how you see yourself, certain you understand your strengths and weaknesses. Well, brace yourself, because chances are, this belief might be a bit of an illusion. But don't worry, you're not alone. Nearly all of us are far less rational and a lot more impulsive in our thinking than we'd like to admit. You see, our brains are wired with mental shortcuts, quick rules of thumb that helped our ancient ancestors make split-second decisions to stay alive. But now, these shortcuts often lead us into biases and flawed judgments that can trip us up more than they help us. This summary will dive into the mental traps we all stumble into every day and reveal how you can break free from them. Along the way, you'll pick up tips on how to dodge these pitfalls and start thinking more clearly. For instance, have you ever wondered why bringing your most attractive friend to a club might not be your best bet if you're looking to make a connection? Or did you know that 84% of Frenchmen genuinely think they're above-average lovers, though mathematically only half could be? And believe it or not, even a bit of sunshine can sway the stock market's highs and lows. And if that's not enough, you'll learn why you might not notice a gorilla in plain sight, even if it's right in front of you. Key insight number 1, we tend to overestimate our abilities in many areas of life. Do you feel like you have a solid grasp on your own abilities, unlike others who might be deceiving themselves? If so, you're far from alone. We all tend to see ourselves in a brighter light than reality may reveal. Research shows that overconfidence is practically universal. For example, a staggering 84% of French men think they're above-average lovers. Statistically, however, only 50% could be above average. This pattern isn't just about romance. Over 93% of U.S. students rank themselves as above-average drivers, and 68% of faculty at the University of Nebraska place their teaching skills in the top quartile. These stats reveal a trend. Most of us view our abilities as greater than they really are. Adding to this, we tend to attribute our successes to our own strengths and blame failures on external factors. Researchers demonstrated this in a study where participants took a personality test and were randomly given high or low scores. Those who received high scores believed the test was accurate, while those who received low scores dismissed it as nonsense. Think about a time you aced a test. You likely gave yourself credit for the success. But if you failed, you may have blamed the test, or other circumstances, instead. So, how can we combat this self-deception? One effective way is to ask a friend for their honest assessment of your strengths and weaknesses. It's a tough step, but it could help reveal a more accurate picture of yourself. Key insight number 2, we control far less in life than we think. Have you ever noticed how gamblers throw dice harder when they need a high roll or softer if they're hoping for a low number? This is an example of the illusion of control, the belief that we can influence events we have no power over. This illusion can give us a sense of hope, helping us endure difficult situations. In one study, participants in soundproof booths tolerated loud noise better if they believed they had a panic button, even though the button did nothing. Just having it there made them feel in control. We encounter similar placebo buttons daily, like crosswalk buttons that don't actually change the light faster or elevator close buttons that often aren't even connected. These small illusions make us feel a bit more in control. But there's another catch. Not only do we overestimate our control, but we're also terrible at predicting outcomes. In a 10-year study analyzing over 28,000 predictions by experts, these forecasts barely outperformed random guesses. So, take this lesson to heart. Don't put too much faith in predictions, no matter the source. Instead, focus on the few areas in life you can genuinely control, and let go of the rest. Key insight number 3, our deep need to follow the crowd, and the fear of being left out. Picture this: a world-class soloist finishes an awe-inspiring, show-stopping performance. Just one person in the crowd starts clapping, and suddenly, the entire audience, yes, including you, is on their feet, thunderously applauding. You didn't even think twice about it. But why do we join in so reflexively? This instinct stems from a powerful psychological force known as social proof. This tendency drives us to feel safe and correct when our actions match those of the group. And it's not a modern quirk. Social proof was woven into the fabric of our ancestors' survival tactics. Imagine you're back in the Stone Age, journeying with your tribe through the wild. Suddenly, everyone in your group starts sprinting. You could stand still, analyzing whether it's a lion or just a harmless animal, but hesitation might mean you're the predator's next meal. Your best chance of survival. Join the herd without a second thought. Over generations, following others became a deeply rooted instinct, our subconscious way of ensuring we stayed in the gene pool. Today, this ancient instinct can lead us down unusual paths, even making us believe in ideas or fads purely because others do. It's why, the more people follow a trend, whether it's the latest diet craze, viral dance move, or even a cryptocurrency boom, the more we feel it must be right. After all, so many people can't be wrong, right? But this urge to fit in doesn't just affect what we do, it changes what we think and feel, too. Welcome to the phenomenon known as groupthink, where we're so driven to keep group harmony that we swallow our doubts, ideas, or critical thoughts just to avoid disrupting unity. You can see it in action at any meeting where everyone nods along, even if there's a voice in your head screaming, "That's a terrible idea." But you stay silent. Why? Because being the one person who disagrees feels risky, uncomfortable, and downright isolating. One striking example of groupthink in action is the tragic downfall of Swissair, once a paragon of the airline industry. For years, they built a powerful consensus around their success, so potent that questioning it was nearly forbidden. Rational concerns were swept under the rug, and warning signs were ignored, all to protect the image of invincibility. By the time reality caught up, it was too late, and they faced financial collapse. Key insight number 3, our deep need to follow the crowd, and the fear of being left out. Picture this: a world-class soloist finishes an awe-inspiring, show-stopping performance. Just one person in the crowd starts clapping, and suddenly, the entire audience, yes, including you, is on their feet, thunderously applauding. You didn't even think twice about it. But why do we join in so reflexively? This instinct stems from a powerful psychological force known as social proof. This tendency drives us to feel safe and correct when our actions match those of the group. And it's not a modern quirk. Social proof was woven into the fabric of our ancestors' survival tactics. Imagine you're back in the Stone Age, journeying with your tribe through the wild. Suddenly, everyone in your group starts sprinting. You could stand still, analyzing whether it's a lion or just a harmless animal, but hesitation might mean you're the predator's next meal. Your best chance of survival. Join the herd without a second thought. Over generations, following others became a deeply rooted instinct, our subconscious way of ensuring we stayed in the gene pool. Today, this ancient instinct can lead us down unusual paths, even making us believe in ideas or fads purely because others do. It's why, the more people follow a trend, whether it's the latest diet craze, viral dance move, or even a cryptocurrency boom, the more we feel it must be right. After all, so many people can't be wrong, right? But this urge to fit in doesn't just affect what we do, it changes what we think and feel, too. Welcome to the phenomenon known as groupthink, where we're so driven to keep group harmony that we swallow our doubts, ideas, or critical thoughts just to avoid disrupting unity. You can see it in action at any meeting where everyone nods along, even if there's a voice in your head screaming, "That's a terrible idea." But you stay silent. Why? Because being the one person who disagrees feels risky, uncomfortable, and downright isolating. One striking example of groupthink in action is the tragic downfall of Swissair, once a paragon of the airline industry. For years, they built a powerful consensus around their success, so potent that questioning it was nearly forbidden. Rational concerns were swept under the rug, and warning signs were ignored, all to protect the image of invincibility. By the time reality caught up, it was too late, and they faced financial collapse. So, next time you feel the irresistible pull of the crowd, pause. Ask yourself if you're following because it makes sense, or simply because everyone else is doing it. Recognizing the power of social proof gives you the freedom to break free from the crowd's grip, think for yourself, and make choices that truly resonate with you. Key insight number 4. How our minds twist information to keep our beliefs intact. Ever think you have an uncanny ability to read people? Like your first impressions are practically spot on. If so, you're not alone. Many of us believe we're perceptive judges of character, but there's a catch. Often, what we think of as intuition is actually confirmation bias at play, a cognitive trick that warps the way we process information, ensuring that our beliefs, assumptions, and self-image remain untouched. It's so universal that psychologists have dubbed it the mother of all misconceptions. Picture this: you log onto your favorite news site or blog to get the latest analysis. Without thinking twice, you trust that the perspectives you're reading are fair, factual, and reflective of reality. But there's a secret at work: your go-to sources align perfectly with your pre-existing beliefs and opinions. It feels reassuring, but it's just feeding your confirmation bias, reinforcing what you already think and creating an echo chamber that distances you from alternative viewpoints. And when everyone around you is thinking the same way, it feels all the more true. The confirmation bias doesn't just influence how we view the world, it even warps how we see ourselves. Imagine you stumble across a horoscope or a tarot reading that resonates with you. You're empathetic, but people sometimes misunderstand your intentions. Suddenly, it feels personal, even profound. You nod along, thinking, "Yes, that's exactly me." Psychologist Bertram Forer put this to the test by mixing and matching random horoscope descriptions, crafting personalized readings for his students. When asked to rate their accuracy, students found the results astoundingly spot on, judging them to be 86% accurate on average. This phenomenon, now famously known as the Forer effect, is proof of just how far we'll go to interpret information in ways that uphold our self-image. To break free from this mental trap, we must challenge ourselves to seek out opposing views and evidence. Sure, it feels uncomfortable at first, almost like putting on glasses with the wrong prescription. But by actively questioning our assumptions and looking for facts that disprove our beliefs, we can get closer to the truth, free from the distorting lens of confirmation bias. Key insight number 5: why we're easily fooled by comparisons and scarcity. Ever gone out with a super attractive friend, only to feel like your own appeal took a nosedive? This isn't just a coincidence, it's a phenomenon known as the contrast effect. Rather than making clear, independent judgments, we often rely on comparisons that warp our perception. So, standing beside your ultra-attractive friend makes you look less attractive by contrast, just like lukewarm water feels burning hot if your hands have been dunked in ice water beforehand. This tendency to evaluate things by comparison is everywhere. Consider shopping. When you see an item marked down from $100 to $70, it feels like an incredible deal, much better than a product that's always been $70, even though the original price shouldn't influence its actual worth. Businesses exploit this psychological quirk constantly, using discounts to make us think we're getting an outstanding value when we're just responding to comparison cues. The trick doesn't stop at comparisons. Scarcity also makes us inflate the value of things. In a classic study on the power of scarcity, participants rated cookies in two groups. One group received an entire box, while the other got only two. Surprisingly, those who received just two cookies rated them as more delicious, even though they were identical. The sense of scarcity had increased their perceived value. This is why you'll see limited time only or only while supplies last plastered across ads. Businesses know we're wired to want what seems rare. But to avoid falling for these biases, try looking at value through a different lens. Consider the actual benefits and costs, independent of any comparison or urgency tactics. With a little focus, you'll make choices based on real value, not just on clever marketing tricks. Key insight number 6: why we're drawn to excitement over facts. Ever notice how you can recall the plot twists of a movie but forget the 5 items on your grocery list? That's because our brains are wired to remember engaging stories rather than dry, abstract details. We crave information that forms a captivating narrative and are easily drawn to the extraordinary over the ordinary. Media channels know this all too well. When a tragic bridge collapse makes headlines, for instance, the story often centers around the life of the driver who fell victim rather than the structural issues that caused the bridge to collapse. Personal, juicy details grip readers, while the less sensational, though crucial, facts about bridge safety take a back seat. Our love for intriguing, exotic tales even clouds our judgment. Take a headline that reads, "Young man fatally stabbed." If asked to guess the attacker, many would instinctively choose an exotic figure like a Russian immigrant with a history of knife smuggling over an average middle-class American. Despite the fact that middle-class Americans are statistically far more common, we're captivated by the thrilling scenario and lean toward improbable explanations. This bias isn't harmless, either. It's crucial in fields like medicine, where doctors must ignore sensational possibilities and stick to probable causes to avoid critical errors. They follow the principle, when you hear hoofbeats, don't expect a zebra, reminding them to look for common ailments rather than rare diseases. Next time you're lured by an intriguing explanation, remember, reality is often far less dramatic than it appears. While exciting stories capture our attention, simple facts are often what truly matter. Key insight number 7: the limited, selective nature of our attention. Imagine watching a video where a gorilla strolls by, beats its chest, and walks off. You'd think anyone would notice it, right? Not exactly. If you're deeply focused on something else, like counting how many times players in white t-shirts pass a basketball, you might miss it entirely. This was precisely the setup of a famous Harvard study, where half of the participants were so focused on the task that they didn't even see the gorilla. Our attention is incredibly selective. We miss nearly everything that isn't within our narrow focus, which can have serious implications. For instance, distracted driving is now known to impair our reaction times as much as alcohol or drugs would. Even a quick look at a cell phone can mean missing important changes in the road, reinforcing the importance of staying focused behind the wheel. Not only is our attention narrow, but what we focus on is also easily influenced by the order of information. This is where the primacy and recency effects come into play. When you hear information in a list, you're likely to remember the first things you hear most strongly. That's the primacy effect. For example, in choosing between two people, if one is described as smart, ambitious, good-looking, critical, and jealous, and the other in the opposite order, most people prefer the one described positively at the start, even though both descriptions contain the same traits. But if the information was learned a while ago, then the recency effect takes the lead, where we best recall the most recent part of the list. Imagine listening to a long speech. Weeks later, you're likely to remember the ending better than anything in between. So next time you're choosing what to focus on, remember, our attention is limited, selective, and shaped by context. Choose wisely, because the things we notice, or overlook, can shape our experiences in profound ways. Key insight number 8. Too many choices drain us. Making decisions isn't as simple as it seems. Imagine walking into a supermarket with 24 flavors of jelly on display. You'd think more choices mean better odds of finding the perfect flavor, right? But the opposite is often true. When there are too many options, our minds freeze. We're less likely to decide at all, and most people end up walking away empty-handed. This phenomenon, called the paradox of choice, is exactly what researchers observed in a study where they offered 24 varieties of jelly one day and only 6 the next. The results were surprising. Customers bought 10 times more jelly when they had only 6 choices. But it doesn't stop there. This overload of choice doesn't just make decisions hard, it actually drains our mental energy. Studies show that when we constantly face choices, we experience decision fatigue, a state where each additional decision wears us down. For instance, one study demonstrated this by having participants make a series of decisions and then asking them to submerge their hand in ice-cold water for as long as possible. The group that made choices struggled to keep their hands submerged for long, proving that decision-making had drained their willpower. This exhaustion even spills over into unexpected areas. For example, on dating apps, where there are endless profiles to swipe through, men often end up using only the simplest criteria, like physical appearance, to make quick decisions, as they're too mentally fatigued to consider anything else. So how do we break free from this cycle? Instead of striving for the perfect choice, which rarely exists, aim for a good decision. Embrace what's good enough, instead of letting the endless pursuit of the best choice wear you out. This shift can not only help you avoid decision fatigue but also bring a lot more peace to your daily life. Key insight number 9, attraction, flattery, and familiarity, the psychology behind our connections. Ever noticed how a captivating smile or striking face can draw you in, making you feel all warm and fuzzy inside? It's not just your imagination. This is a powerful phenomenon known as the halo effect. This phenomenon shows how one standout quality, like beauty, can cloud our judgment, leading us to perceive attractive individuals as more pleasant, honest, and intelligent than they may actually be. Extensive research has demonstrated that beauty has a disproportionate impact on how we judge people, influencing our opinions across various settings, from schools to workplaces. It's been shown that attractive individuals often enjoy easier professional paths, receiving unwarranted advantages like higher grades from teachers simply because of their looks. This leads to a double-edged sword. While it may benefit those who fit society's beauty standards, it can also foster dangerous stereotypes based on superficial traits like race, gender, or nationality. Imagine a new CEO stepping into your company. If she's stunningly beautiful, you might immediately wonder if her looks played a role in her hiring, sidelining her impressive qualifications and leadership experience. It's an all too common misjudgment where we oversimplify the complexities of success into a single, superficial attribute. But that's not the only trick our minds play on us. We also fall victim to the liking bias, where we tend to favor people who remind us of ourselves or who express fondness towards us. This is particularly exploited in sales, when a salesperson compliments you with phrases like, "Wow, that dress looks phenomenal on you." They aren't just being nice. They're leveraging your desire for social connection, making you more inclined to buy from them because they've made you feel valued and understood. Another sneaky tactic is mirroring, where a salesperson subtly imitates your gestures and expressions, creating an unconscious bond of similarity. This clever strategy makes them seem more relatable and likable, increasing the chances that you'll make a purchase. Key insight number 10, the emotional underpinnings of our decision-making. Do you pride yourself on being a rational thinker? Let's put that to the test. Take a moment to decide your stance on genetically modified foods. A truly rational approach would have you weigh the pros and cons methodically, listing out every advantage, assessing its importance, and calculating the probability of each occurring before doing the same for the disadvantages. In theory, this should lead you to an objective conclusion based on facts. But if you're like most people, you probably didn't go through this complex process. Instead, your decision likely sprung from instinctual feelings. This highlights a crucial reality: we are not as rational as we think. Our decisions are often guided by mental shortcuts that are heavily influenced by our emotions. For instance, the mere mention of genetically modified can trigger strong emotional reactions, either positive or negative. If you have a negative impression of GMOs, you're more likely to perceive the risks, like environmental damage, as greater and the benefits, such as increased crop yields, as smaller than they truly are. This reliance on emotional responses skews our assessments, pushing us further away from rationality. This emotional sway doesn't stop at personal decisions, it reaches into the financial markets, too. Research has shown that daily stock market performance can be swayed by something as simple as the weather. On days when the sun shines brightly, stock prices tend to rise, suggesting that the mood-enhancing effects of sunshine can influence financial decisions and result in billions of dollars in trading fluctuations. In a world where rationality is often revered, this emotional influence can lead us astray, affecting everything from personal choices to large-scale economic trends. Recognizing that our feelings play a significant role in our decision-making is the first step toward making more informed and balanced choices. By acknowledging this, we can work towards incorporating a more analytical mindset, allowing us to counteract our emotional biases and strive for clarity in our decisions. Key takeaways and actionable advice. Understanding our biases, we often operate under a series of cognitive biases that cloud our judgment. We tend to overestimate our abilities, seek confirmation for our beliefs, and are drawn to attractive or exotic options. Our focus is limited, and we frequently miss essential details in our environment, leading to imprecise evaluations. Moreover, our emotional state and the behavior of those around us heavily influence our decision-making. Actionable advice. Seek honest feedback. Acknowledge that you, like everyone else, have a tendency to overestimate your capabilities. To counteract this bias, consider inviting a friend, or even an adversary, for a candid conversation about your strengths and weaknesses. Their insights can provide you with a more accurate self-assessment, helping you identify areas for growth. Don't fall for limited time only sales tactics. Be wary of promotions that play on the fear of missing out. These marketing strategies exploit your tendency to value items more when their availability seems limited. Instead, remind yourself that in today's digital age, most products and services can be accessed online at any time. Focus on the actual benefits and quality of the product rather than the urgency of the offer. By incorporating these strategies into your daily life, you can work toward clearer thinking, more accurate self-perception, and wiser decision-making.